Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. This is September 24th of 2020. I'm going to be your Zoom coordinator tonight. My name is Mark Schroeder. If you have anything going wrong with Zoom or need any assistance with anything, that would be me that you need to get a hold of. Just real quickly, let me do a share of our agenda. Share screen. All right, you should be seeing my screen now. This, of course, is our website, which is DallasSocialToastmasters.com. And you can find our agenda in a couple of places. The most obvious one is over here in the members section. It's the very, very first link in reddish orange called current agenda. When you click on that one, I will go ahead and do it even though I've already done it. It brings up this as our agenda. And so if you would like to follow along tonight with all of our proceedings, that is going to be the best way for you to do that and to check what your role might be if you're not sure you remember. Let's see, I will take that down for a moment. I can stop the share. For the most part, I'm going to try to keep as many people on mute as possible, just to keep the noise level down. If I happen to mute you when you didn't think you were muted, you may need to check that occasionally if somebody doesn't seem to be hearing you. And of course, we will do votes in the chat window. You can select everyone to send to everybody that is in the meeting, or our vote counter tonight is going to be me, so you will be sending private chats to me for voting. And with that, I would like to turn this over to our first person tonight, Invocation and Pledge, which is going to be Rob Giles. Rob, go ahead and take it away. And you are on mute.
Of course. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And before I'm actually going to skip over you, Mark Sims. Again, no intended insult in that regard. We have no guests here, so I'm gonna skip that over. But I'm going to start off with a quote, and this is from Gautama Buddha, and this is in regard to our theme. And the quote is, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path." So that's something that we all have to do throughout our life. Sometimes we have help here and there, but ultimately it's us making the decisions of what fork we're going to turn onto and what road we're going to take, what path we're going to perhaps find ourselves on, and we have no idea where that's going to lead for sure. And that leads me to our theme, which is navigating your path. Now, in our times right now, we have a little bit of an adjustment to our paths for probably all of us, at least to some extent, because it pretty much permeates throughout our entire world and our entire personal world, our first world, if I may use that term. And that is the pandemic. It affects our personal life. It affects our work life or our career. It affects Toastmasters. We're here in Zoom because of that. And although we can gain some great things from some of these things as we kind of adjust our path and adjust the way that we're aiming, but we alone must make those decisions for ourselves as to what we want to do. And I'm glad that everybody's here and has chosen, at least for tonight, this part of their path to continue on with Toastmasters. A more specific thing that I wanted to deal with tonight was a different kind of path, and that is your path in pathways. And I think all of us have kind of gotten our feet wet at the very least and have gone into pathways and done some of those things. But I do want to bring up some things that hopefully reiterate a few things for you. And I'm just going to go over a few things throughout the portion of the meeting up until table topics. And the first thing that I do want to do, and I'm going to share the screen here, is to talk about our paths. When we get into our paths, there are 5 levels. And for our paths, we have the 5 levels, and inside each of the 5 levels, we have different projects that we have to complete in order to complete the level. And within each of those projects, we have to do a few things. in order to complete them, in order for us to move on, complete the path, and things like that. So the things that are pretty much the same for every single project are what I'm about to present right now. And that is a before assessment. When you open up your project, for whatever path you're on, for whatever level you're on, you're going to have a before assessment. And that basically goes through I think it's 4 to 6 questions that you have to answer, basically assessing yourself and different skills for that particular project. And also a question of how you think it applies to life in general. And once you've gone through that, then you'll go through and you'll review the project. You'll create your speech regarding the project. You'll practice your speech, and you'll finally present your speech. And then at the very end, after you've presented your speech and you've received your feedback, your evaluation form back from your evaluator, then you're going to go back into the project and you're going to do one last thing that you need to do in order to move on as far as overall, as far as the next, completing that level. And really, if you want to go from project to project in order, then, and this isn't a bad way to go, but you have to do one more thing, and that's assess yourself again. So there's an after assessment. And that after assessment, again, is very important because it won't, if you don't complete these after assessments, and I think the before assessment as well, if you don't do this for every single project within your level, it won't give you the opportunity to actually mark your level complete. It won't allow you to mark that, which will send a request to the Basecamp managers to say, hey, John Doe from your group has requested a completion for this particular level in this particular path. And at that point, the project or the Basecamp managers review it, and then they will either approve it, they'll deny it, maybe ask you questions. But these are the things that you need to do and need to go over in order to go ahead and actually complete each level. And there's 5 levels, and each project, again, has all of those things that I just mentioned. I'm going to go a little bit further in and note a couple of other things as far as some of the projects. And there's a little bit of a different thing for each of the levels and each of the projects. I'm going to go over those in just a moment, but I'm going to go into our duty holders for the evening. And I'm going to start with someone who's doing double duty as far as minor, I don't want to say minor duties, but I guess fundamental duties, I'm going to call them. So Mark Schroeder, I hope you don't feel bad about that comment that I made, because these are fundamentals for sure, and we all need them, and these are what hold our meetings together. So can you please give us a description of what you're going to be doing as timer and also as vote counter, please?
No problem. And relative to the big 3, these are sort of the small 5. No problem with that. That's exactly what they are. And quite frankly, it's 3 duties, since I'm also a Zoom facilitator, which these are the perfect ones to do because I don't have to take a lot of notes for either of the duties that I've got. Makes my job just a little bit easier. The only unfortunate thing I've noticed so far is I was looking at the participant list, and the laggard that you were referring to, John Doe, does not seem to be one of our participants tonight. So while you have berated him a little bit, doesn't do any good. He's not here. Sorry. All right, so my first duty tonight is going to be as, of course, let's do the timer first. As a timer, my job is to watch the time of our prepared speeches, our table topics, and our speech evaluations tonight. Timeliness is important in speaking. Most of the time that you are going to be asked to speak, you will have a timing requirement that you need to meet. And so we're trying to learn how to do that. I will indicate the timing requirements by putting up typically a gray around the time that you start, indicating that I at least am awake and knowing what I'm doing. And then when I get to the minimum time, I will put up a green. Halfway between the minimum and the maximum, I will put up a yellow. And finally, I will put up the red when you've reached the maximum time. Now, for most of your engagements, you have 30 seconds on either side. So you actually qualify 30 seconds before the green and 30 seconds up beyond the red to wrap up and finish up. Table topics is unique in that you do have to at least reach the green in order to qualify. That is not true about the others. So that is going to be what I'm going to do, and you will notice that I have a little square. If you were to move your cursor into the little square on the ... you will find pin video. If you need to, that is one way to make sure that I stay visible, because if I'm silent, I may get pushed off onto the right-hand side of the screen so that you will not notice that I'm there. All right, so that, let me go back to Yeah, I'll have to pick that one. I'm not sure where the other one is. Got too many backgrounds. All right.
Vote counter.
Yeah. No. I was trying to find get off of the gray virtual background and pick one. All right. So vote counter. When I mentioned a little bit earlier, my job as a vote counter is to count the votes for any of our contested races. Are we treating both speakers as part of the contested race, or is one of them just a demo?
We did consider Karen as part of the contest or the
last time,
the speakers last week. So I would
okay,
say
we can do that again.
Yeah.
That's fine. All right. In which case, we will have a contest for speaker and for evaluator as well, of course, because evaluator is going to be a round robin, I think, right?
That's true.
So we will not necessarily have a contest for the best evaluator. Certainly, we'll also have one for table topics. You will cast your votes in the chat window by, instead of saying to everyone, use the little pull down menu, or in my case, pull up, since it is down there on that corner, and select Mark Schroeder, me, as the person that you will send your votes to. You then type into the box and go ahead and hit the return, and I'll get your votes. That does mean it's not anonymous, so just be aware of that. But it's about the best we can do at this point. If there happens to be a tie, I will be the tiebreaker. I will not tell you that there was a tie so that you don't know how I voted. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mark. Our next duty holder is actually different from what is on the agenda. I am the next duty holder for Posture Monitor, but Kim Crandall has graciously accepted that role from me. So Kim, can you please tell us or describe for us what you're going to be looking for as Posture Monitor this evening?
Oops, I'm sorry, I put Kim on mute. Let me unmute her. Where is it? Oh, looks like all I can do is ask. Kim, can you unmute yourself?
She did.
Okay.
There you go.
Mr. Toastmaster, as posture monitor, I will be looking for anything that is distracting, as far as any body movement that does not enhance the presentation, the speech that people are presenting. It's a little bit harder because I don't see the full body, but from the waist on up, you get a pretty good indication of hand gestures, facial expressions, anything that would be conveying your interest and your participation and connection with your audience. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Kim. Appreciate it. Appreciate you taking that role. Our next duty holder is our counter, and that is our president, Mr. Mark Sims. Mark, can you please explain your role today?
As counter, I'll be listening for any use of filler words such as you know, some crutch word that detracts from the quality of your presentation and your remarks. I'll make note of that and then make a report when called upon by the general evaluator. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it. Our last duty holder is our grammarian, and that is Mr. John Vessels. John, can you tell us what you'll be listening for as far as your grammarian role?
Well, I'll be listening for good and bad uses of the English language among our speakers tonight. I will make note of those and present them at the end of the night when called upon by the general evaluator. Also, I will show you the word of the day, and the word of the day tonight is superfluous. It's an adjective and it means unnecessary or being beyond what is required or needed. It is to be used anytime in the evening, but must be used during the table topics portion of the meeting in order to qualify for an award during table topics. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, John. So getting back to our theme, navigating your path, and I want to get back into the Toastmasters pathways journey, those paths. That's what I want to talk a little bit more about here. And I'd mentioned that for every project that you do, you have to do that before assessment. You go through the project, give your speech, and then you do the after assessment. And then at that point, you can check that off and move on to the next project. And if you're done with all the projects in your level, then you can check off that mark complete, and that'll send a message, like I said, to the Basecamp managers, and you can move on to the next level. But I want to mention a couple of things that are different within each path. And the first thing that I want to talk about, I'm going to share my screen again, and this time I'm going to go to Toastmasters.org. And I hope everybody can see that. Raise of hands, everybody can see it. If you can't see it, please let me know. So this is one of my paths that I'm working on, and this is leadership development. You can see that there. I'm marked on level 1. This is what we're looking at right now. And you'll see there's 3 projects. There's the icebreaker, the evaluation and feedback, and then the research and presenting. The second one there, evaluation and feedback. This project is a little bit different, and as far as I know, I'm pretty sure that it's the only one that's like this. This particular project actually contains 2 speeches and 1 evaluation. So this is where you learn, hence the title of the project, to take evaluation and feedback from somebody, learn how to use it, and then once you've used it or tried to use it in your next speech, then after that, you've gained some of that experience and you're able to go out and you can evaluate somebody else using the experience that you've gained. So there's 3 parts to that project. So you have to go through, you have to do 1, 2 speeches, and then you have to do an evaluation. You're just an evaluator, and somebody's gonna write up an evaluation form for you. And there's 3 evaluation forms in that project. 1 for the first speech, 1 for the second speech, and 1 for the evaluator. So all of those things. So that one's a little bit different. The other thing that you'll find as you move along, and some of you have already gone through this and you found this, and you don't necessarily have to go through all these projects directly in order. I kind of recommend it, but you don't necessarily have to. We've all been around for a while, so sometimes we need a break and need to find something a little bit different from what we've been doing. So I'm moved in here to level 3. And level 3, you'll see, is a little bit different. It has 1 project that's listed here, and this is just for me, and the projects are going to be different for each path. At least some of them will be, and some will be the same. But this has 1 project, and I believe that every project and every level has at least 1 project that's solid. You have to do it. And so that's this one here for me, that planning and implementing. And I haven't started that one yet, but I did go in and I started my elective projects. And here you'll see that there's a minimum requirement of 2. You have an option to do 2 of 14. So there's 14 electives that I can do. And you can view those electives by clicking on View Details. And if you view the details, then that can bring up all the different levels that we have here. And you'll see a lot of these. And you'll see that I completed 1. There's a check mark by 1. And again, I have to complete 2 in this particular level. So you can go through, and there's a lot of variety there for you to look at. Some of the stuff is similar to what we've gone through in the legacy or traditional program, and other things are a little bit different. And then again, this list is going to be a little bit different depending on the path that you choose. Some of the electives may be the same, some may be different. So it's geared, try to be geared toward your path. But for that 3rd level, everybody has to complete the 1 solid and then pick 2 electives and complete those 2 elective projects. Level 4 and level 5, it's a little bit different as well. Level 4, you have the 1 solid for sure project that you have to do. No choice or option there, but then you have electives, and in this one, you have 8 that you can choose. At least that's for me. It may be different for each path, but it's not gonna be much different. So I have 8 that I have to choose from and then choose 1 particular project. And again, these projects are actually going to be different from the ones that I just showed you in the previous level. But you do have to complete 1 of them in order to get to the next level. And then level 5 is similar, where you have 1 solid, actually, let me get in here. You have 1 solid, 1 confirmed project that you have to complete. And then you have a set of electives that you can work through to complete 1. So as you can see, level 3, 4, and 5 are different than level 1 and 2. but you have to go through these. And so those are just some different things, but for each project, getting back to what I had been talking about before. And I don't know if you can you see this now? Black screen, hopefully everybody sees that.
We're not seeing a change.
No change, all right, well, that's fine. There we go. So again, for, well, I guess I'm gonna skip that. But again, it goes back through the before assessment, you work through the project, give your speech, and then you do the after assessment. And that allows you to move on in the levels once you've completed all of those within your level, as far as all the projects are concerned. So the path for pathways is pretty straightforward in that regard. There's a little bit of variation. The projects are the ones that make it different paths for everybody, and thus the name. At this point, I would like to change our path tonight and veer into the second portion of our meeting, and that will take us in, or actually, I'm sorry, before we go into the second portion of the meeting, the next portion, which is our prepared speakers. And we're going to start off with the evaluator for our first prepared speaker. Our first prepared speaker is Mr. Dagan Newland, and Dagan's evaluator is Mr. Mark Sims. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about Dagan's project?
Yes. Dagan's speech is titled My Mentors. This is in the Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring Project. And his goals are twofold. One is to define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring, and then to discuss his own experience as a protege. And that is what I will be listening for. And so please help me welcome Dagan Newland, speaking on My Mentors by Dagan Newland.
As a quick reminder, make sure that I am pinned or visible.
Okay, so as our project is to talk about the mentorship, or actually me being a protege, and talk about my mentors. So I actually got a couple that I want to talk about, because really when I thought about my past history, I really could only think of two people that kind of stood out to me, and that's involving where I currently work at Macy's. So really, the first one I want to talk about is when I first started into loss prevention, and actually it was Foley's back then, but that's needless to say. But my first boss, it's not him I'm actually talking about, but my first boss was more like a coach. And he just kind of coached us through. But it wasn't until after he left the company and we got a new manager in, and his name is Alan. And Alan actually, saw my potential and actually, in essence, kind of, mentored me. He actually kind of worked with me kind of one-on-one. And, when something particular happened, he'd ask me, so what would you do in this situation? And, I'd, let him know, then he'd let me know his feedback on, how good it was on my decision-making process, basically. So, and that's, being somebody like that, being a mentor is a lot more personable, to me than somebody basically coaching, just kind of telling you, here's the process, here's how to do it, and kind of going that route. You don't get the, personability in there. So then that, later on, about probably half a year later, with Alan as my mentor, I actually got promoted to, loss prevention manager. At that point, I got a new boss, basically, the district manager, the district manager of loss prevention. And she was more like a coach in her aspects, So it wasn't until I got my next mentor when I, had to leave my loss prevention role, and when my store shut down, I had to go into a different line of work, but that was receiving manager. When I became receiving manager at our Firewall location in Garland, Texas, honestly, being in the company, and I kind of knew the aspects of receiving, but I never worked in receiving, so I still had to learn some things about the different processes and kind of how to do them, because as a security manager, we knew the process, but we didn't know how to do it. And what it all entails. So we didn't really get into that kind of stuff. So, and her name was Samantha. And Samantha, I actually almost think that she was actually a better mentor than Alan was. But you know, they were both great mentors. But Samantha, you know, even took a step further. And like when we first worked my first truck together, she was like stood there right next to me, you know, side by side, and working on how, you know, letting me know the process and how to go, you know, pretty much the whole way through the whole truck. And she did that, you know, several times in a row. And even the other processes I had to learn, you know, she was, you know, right there, you know, with me. You know, she was kind of a superfluous person, you know. But anyway, so, you know, that's what really a mentor, you know, does. You know, they're going to be more personable, you know, and you have questions, you know, you feel comfortable, you know, going to them, getting their feedback. Where as a coach, you know, there's somebody that's just going to basically tell you, you know, basically here's the process, you know, here's how to do it. And the coaching is more like more of a kind of a one subject type situation, where a mentor, it's more broad. So being a protege to these two people, actually, you know, now that I think about it, you know, honestly, I didn't really think about it at the time, but now that I think about it and, you know, learning this, you know, looking at the course and seeing about the process between the mentor and coach, I can definitely tell being a mentor to somebody is definitely way more effective than being a coach to somebody. Just because you do get that personality and personability and that one-on-one training. So if you are in the opportunity to be in a position of being a coach or a mentor, you know, I highly recommend that, you know, be a mentor to that person. It's you know, to me, it's definitely just more effective, and I learned a lot more, you know, from a mentor than a coach. So that's my speech. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Dagan. We greatly appreciate that speech. I totally agree. I think that what we have found as Toastmasters, what we've learned through all the mentorships that we've done and experienced, especially as well as a lot of these speeches that we've been getting from everybody as they walk through their path, that mentorship is great, especially because it allows for people to really step out of their zone, to stretch themselves, to grow. It's a great feeling to see those people grow. And that's one of the benefits. And I think probably the two mentors that you mentioned, probably that was one of the great things, that they see you grow through the process, and they see you grow as you move along. And I'm sure that they loved being part of that and watching you take those challenges and opportunities and move through them on your path. Our next speaker is Karen Lee, and because we don't have an evaluator specifically that is going to be actually evaluating her, I'm going to give an intro here. Karen is doing a humorous speech. She's working through presenting her humorous speech from our club contest, where she won the club contest. She was the one who stepped up and who was the humorous speaker for us during that time. And she's moving on. She's taking on every opportunity to learn and grow with this. And she's going to represent us in our club at the Area 33 contest on October 3rd. And her title for her speech tonight is COVID-19 Humor. Please help me to welcome Karen Lee, COVID-19 Humor. COVID-19 Humor, Karen Lee.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, in late March, my neighbor across the hall told me about the government shutdown. She'd been watching the news. My sister also called me at the same time to tell me about the government shutdown. What is a government shutdown? Is the sky falling? I was very anxious about the government shutdown. I didn't know what to expect. Since we don't have a vaccine, for the coronavirus, we've been given 3 simple measures to follow to keep ourselves safe. The first is wearing the mask. The second is hand washing / alcohol sanitizer. And the third is social distancing. The first is wearing the mask. I can't breathe. I can't even talk. Whose idea was it for us to wear the mask in the first place? You say I'm supposed to wear the mask to protect other people from my germs? I say every woman for herself. I went walking in my neighborhood and I saw a mask hanging from rearview mirrors. I thought, you know what I was looking for, which I haven't seen in a long time? Fuzzy dice. I get a big kick out of watching drivers in their cars driving all alone wearing their masks. My 2-year-old niece didn't like wearing the mask in the beginning. She tolerates the mask now, but she didn't like it. I don't think anyone likes wearing masks. The second measure is hand washing / alcohol sanitizer. If you don't have soap and water available, you can use the alcohol sanitizer. In Ranger Stadium, cardboard cutouts are in the stadium for the fans. We have one member in our Toastmaster Club whose face is on one of those cardboard cutouts. In the stands, alcohol sanitizer is available. Well, how are the cardboard cutouts supposed to wash their hands? When soap and water is available, the best practice is to wash your hands for 20 seconds. A good way to remember 20 seconds is to sing the happy birthday song in your head. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. This way, you'll know that you're washing your hands for the length of time required. When I was a kid, I used to drink from a water hose. I think I turned out okay. I also ate dirt. A lot of children ate soil samples when they were little. The third measure is social distancing. We're encouraged to keep at least 6-foot distance between each of us in public places. How is a single person supposed to date? I saw an internet cartoon one time. The couple both wearing masks in a restaurant, and their tables were separated by 6 feet. On another date, they were in a canoe, and they were wearing protective clothing from head to foot. They were separated by 6 feet. Fast forward to their wedding, and the priest said, "You may elbow bump your wife." How many of you have been to the doctor during the pandemic? I went to the doctor recently, and I was sitting on the examination table, and the doctor came in wearing a hazmat suit. He wouldn't get within 6 feet of me. I said, "Doc, I'm over here." I'm over here. In conclusion, we have 3 simple measures to follow to keep ourselves safe during the pandemic. The mask, hand washing / alcohol sanitizer, and social distancing. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Karen. Very, very nice. I especially like the very end with the megaphone, but I'll get into that later. I hope everybody paid attention. If you could please maybe note a few things that if you haven't already, and then we're going to do a round robin later on during the general evaluation portion of the meeting to give Karen some feedback again for her speech so that she can continue to prepare and improve before the area contest. At this point, I want to ask our timer, Mr. Timer, did both of our speakers qualify on time?
Mr. Toastmaster, both of our speakers did in fact qualify on time tonight.
Excellent. At this point, please go ahead and send a private chat to our vote counter this evening, who is our timer as well. That's Mark Schroeder. So send a private chat to Mark Schroeder, voting on either Karen Lee with COVID-19 humor or Dagan Newland with My Mentors. If you have any comments that you want to send as well, go ahead and send them to the speakers as well. You can do that throughout the meeting as well. None of that is superfluous. It's all good. At this point, I do want to, before I hand it off, I want to do something that you may think is superfluous, but hopefully it'll pay off in the end. And that is to go over once again for each project in Pathways. You need to do the before assessment. You need to go ahead and review your project, create the speech, practice it, and then present it within your club, or if need be, or you want, and you work through another club for that particular time, that's fine, but just let your VP of Ed know. And then after you're done with that, you get your evaluation back from your evaluator. Then you got to come back into the project and do the after assessment. Very, very important for you to complete that in order to complete your level entirely. So those are just a couple of things that I want to talk about as far as that. And then I want to move on to the next portion of our meeting, which is our table topics. This is the same path that we take pretty much every meeting. We go from our prepared speeches into our table topics. This is not superfluous either, is it, John? Can you take over as topic master, please?
Yay. No, this is not superfluous. This is a very big part of Toastmasters training, learning to speak off the cuff. And that's what this portion of the meeting is about. I'm going to be asking a few questions, targeting one of our members, and then they have 1 minute to 2 minutes to give me their response. Also, in their response, they need to include the word of the day, which is superfluous. And again, superfluous means unnecessary or being beyond what is required or needed. So please remember that you must use superfluous when you present your table topic speech tonight. Paths is what we're talking about tonight, and I thought I'd come up with a few ideas about paths and how I think about paths and paths in life go. So I've got a few questions here, and I'd like to see what our people have to say about the path in life. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Mr. Schroeder. So Dagan, will you time Mark for me? Thank you. Okay, Mr. Schroeder, Dagan's going to time you, so keep Dagan pinned, and when I get off, stop talking, I'll switch over to the word of the day. So you want to keep that up to remind yourself. So, Mr. Schroeder, did your career direction change from the time you were a teenager to the time you went to college or out into the working world?
Did my career direction change? Yes and no. I say that in the sense that it definitely took a change, but it took a change fairly quickly. I had always thought that when I grew up, I would be an electrical engineer. I had always been interested in electronic projects. I had had a lot of the Radio Shack, breadboard type build your own things, and had always had an interest in putting together and building things like that. So I really figured that I would go to college and end up being an electrical engineer. And it turns out I got in freshman year, a combination of both electrical and computer science. And one of them did not work out as well as the other, is the only way to put it. To not be too superfluous, the professors in the electrical engineering department really were not very good. There was a lot to be desired from the from the professors that were teaching electrical engineering, whereas I had some nationally recognized computer science professors teaching even as a entry-level student. I did have one really good double E. He actually was working on electrical signals in the body. He was doing his dissertation at Parkland Hospital. And he was there at 8 o'clock in the morning and enthused and very energetic. But the rest of them, they were not worth the time of day. But the computer science department it had been somewhat attractive, but not anywhere near as attractive when I entered. But I definitely took a turn into that direction as I went through that first year and the second year, to the point that at some point I took one of the double E classes that I didn't understand, and they were not able to teach me what was really going on, and I dropped it and I never looked back. That's my answer, Mr. Table Topics.
Thank you, Mark. Good question. Now, I'm going to go to Marcia. She joined after the meeting started a little bit, so I'm sure y'all saw her pop in. So welcome. Glad you made it, Marcia.
Thank you.
Okay. Marcia, did your parents have a path planned for your life, and did you follow it?
Thank you. Yes, as I had shared before with everyone, I am the youngest of 4. So that was a good thing. And it was not so great in the sense that my parents made sure that I did not make the same mistakes that my siblings. And so that was a lot of pressure for me to ensure that I did not do the same things that they did. I would give my parents credit is that they did afford us an opportunity to kind of just, do what we wanted to do to some degree. But they did have, very high expectations. I'd say that they had the most for me. So at the time, I was the first in my family to go to college. And so I sought to, just tried to create my own pathway, but I was determined to not necessarily be superfluous, but at the same time, I did want to stand out. And so I wanted to work for the FBI, and I desired to go to the Marines first. I thought that was just like, man, that was the way to go. And I wanted to actually be a forensic psychologist. And when I came home to tell my parents that I wanted to go to the Marines, they said, absolutely not. I had my eldest brother, actually, that was his pathway. He went to the Marines and he was in Special Forces, but they did not want that for me. But I did go to the university. I did major in psychology only to become a special education teacher, but I have no regrets in it. None to this day. I still feel like I'm a psychologist, and then some. Being a special education teacher, just being a teacher, period. So, I think my parents are very proud of me. to the extent I feel that also my siblings are, because my sister actually went back and got her degree. So.
Thank you, Marcia. That's great. Thank you very much. Let me see. Kim's still kind of out and fuzzed up, so we don't know if she can hear us. So, Mr. Sims.
She can hear. We're just not getting video.
Oh, okay. Kim, can you hear me real quick first? Let's go ahead and unmute. Let's make sure we're connected. Oh, well, she wouldn't be able to see.
Okay.
Okay.
There she is.
Okay. All right, Kim, we're going to do table topics. And so here is my question to you. When you plan a vacation trip, do you go into details and plan your path for the vacation every day and times in detail to get everything in you intend to do?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Table Topics Master. When I plan a trip, I don't do anything that's superfluous in regards to that vacation. I have a particular destination in mind, but then when it actually comes to arriving at that location, I'm pretty much open to seeing maybe some things that I wasn't aware of. For example, when I've been down in San Antonio the first time I went, I was not really aware of what all there might be available to see in San Antonio, other than I knew basically all I knew was the Riverwalk and the Alamo. But once I got there, I was able to connect and actually being able to see a lot more based on once I got talking to people, being able to
1 minute.
walk around and being able to get a visual on maybe some things that might be interesting once I actually was able to even have a city tour. So superfluous, I pretty much am open when I go on vacation and leave. I have a destination in mind, but then there's always room for being able to explore.
1 minute, 30
Table Topics
seconds.
Master.
Thank you, Kim. Great job. Appreciate that. And I'm going to have one last question. And that question is going to go to Rob. Mr. Giles, are you comfortable with the path your life has taken now? Or are you still looking for something else in life?
Thank you very much, Mr. Topic Master. I would say really both. My life has been a very interesting journey. I have gone through a lot of extreme ups and a lot of extreme downs, and I have come out from that in a place where I really am comfortable with who I am and where I am. And I believe that in a sense, I've matured through that and become a person that doesn't think about as much what other people think of what I'm doing or what I want or who I am. I value myself the way that I value myself. And I think that that's probably the most important thing that somebody can do so they can move on and help other people. With that being said, and this is not superfluous at all, I think that I do look for something more, something new in the path ahead for me. I am not necessarily thinking something specific other than perhaps finding a partner to share my life with, somebody that I can share the rest of my life with. And I don't really expect for that to be directly ahead of me. I may have to take a fork in the road. I may have to go down a squiggly path, but none of that path is going to actually be superfluous. It's going to be something that is going to be very beneficial for me, because I believe in my heart of hearts that no matter what we do, no matter what we think, it's not necessarily the end. It's not the goal that we're getting to. It's the journey that matters. All the things that we go through, the things that we fail at, the things that we succeed at. Failing is a very important part of life, and I've done a lot of it, and I'm sure that I'll do a lot more as I go along for whatever is left for me and out there for me. But those are the things I would have to say, that the path that I've taken is great. I wouldn't change a bit about it, but the path that's out there for me, I'm very excited about. Back to you, Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you, Rob. So I'm guessing it's not the destination, it's the path that you've taken and traveled and the experience. Okay, cool. Great thoughts there too. All right, so that's me into my table topics for tonight. I'd like to call on the vote counter, timer. Did everybody qualify on time?
Everyone tonight qualified on time.
Thank you, sir. And as a grammarian too, I'd like to let everybody know that yes, everybody used the word of the day tonight. They weren't superfluous about it, and it was there. So I'd like to go ahead and thank y'all all, and now it's time to vote for who you thought did the best job as table topics tonight. And just as a review, we had Mr. Mark Schroeder, we had Ms. Collins, we had Kim Crandall, and then the last but not least was Rob Giles. And while y'all are voting, I'm going to go ahead and pass the meeting over to our general evaluator, Lee King.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome to the evaluation portion of the meeting, where we will discuss what went well and what we can work on in the future. I will dive in with our evaluations at this point, starting with Mark Sims, who will be evaluating Dagan. So Mark, will you please do your evaluation?
Yes. And Dagan gave a speech on.
We have lost you.
Okay, someone muted me, that's fine. Dagan gave a speech on mentors and proteges. And he advised me before the meeting started that this was somewhat impromptu. So which is a good test of your skills. I'm going to cover what Dagan did well, what he could work on, and then what he could really do to excel in the speech. What he did well is the overarching impression I got is that his experience, especially as a protege, was important to him. He didn't have to say this was important to me, or I think it's really important for people to be good mentors. It came through loud and clear. He put a lot of emphasis on that. So it was a personal, sincere speech, not what I would call a book speech. Dagan gave good information, good detail on his career progression, which was important because the two best mentors he mentioned, Alan and Samantha, worked with him in different times of his career. Some of that time loss prevention manager, some of that time receiving manager. Dagan also gave a good contrast on the benefits of the interactive mentors that asked his opinions, that connected with him, and that made his protege time a positive experience, versus the more detached talker coach who simply gives you directions, do this, don't do this. And obviously he felt strongly that the former, the true interactive mentor, was better than the latter. So a very good contrast. And along those lines, near the end, Dagan summed up very well the benefits of the interactive mentor. I didn't have time to write everything down, but he mentioned several factors to support his conclusion. What you could work on, Dagan, is that jumping ahead a little bit because this bleeds over into the counter role. There were several you-knows and several so's all throughout. I think more you-knows than so's. So that's always a good thing to watch for and try and weed out. Also, this may simply not have been what you wanted to do or what you wanted to emphasize, but in the criteria, the speech criteria or speech objectives in the Toastmasters manual, one of those was for you to define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring. Even if that wasn't as important to you, I didn't hear a lot about it. Maybe you could have started off with, Toastmasters sees mentoring as this, this, and this. Well, this is my experience. And then what you could do to really excel is, since you had some excellent mentors, to maybe take a step further and tell how that influenced you on mentoring other people, or if that hasn't occurred yet, how you hope that to help you to be a great mentor in the future. So thanks so much, and we learned a lot more about you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. Mark Schroeder, did Mark Sims qualify on time?
Yes, he did.
Okay. At this point, we will now move into the round robin evaluation of Karen Lee to keep the meeting going and for us to not go on well into the night. We will limit the evaluation to 1 to 2 minutes. So, Mark, if you could, actually, let's keep it at a minute. So, Mark, if you could give the green at 30 seconds, yellow at 45, red at 1 minute. That will
Okay,
just
just
kind of
one
keep
moment. Let me
things.
get that set back up. Go. Okay, ready.
You ready? Okay. And so, Mark Schroeder, I'll go ahead and let you go first since you'll be doing most of your time.
No, let somebody else go first.
Okay. Then I will start with Mark Sims.
Karen, I noted that you worked into this version of the speech the absurdity of the fake fans in the stands at baseball games. So that's a very good addition. And it's something that obviously is in the news a lot. It's one of the unusual features of sports this year. So I think that'll help people to connect to the speech. So many people have an interest in sports. So I appreciate that, and good luck to you when you give the speech.
All right, let's hear from Dagan.
All right. Okay, so yeah, so still a good use of the props. I was actually kind of think something kind of funny is that we talk about eating dirt, is that actually eat some dirt, but I know we don't really want to do that, but and he had a lot of good, we asked a question about the, people, has anybody gone to the doctor while on pandemics? That's always good to ask a question, get some interaction. Maybe finish some other questions earlier in the segment too, might work too. And at the end, we backed up and put your hands in mouth and said, back to you, Toastmaster. I thought that maybe it could have been a little bit better if you actually yelled it a little bit louder. That would have been more effective too. So, all right, back to you, General Evaluator.
All right, next we will hear from Kim. Kim, are you able to join us?
Working on getting her off mute.
Oh.
Karen Lee, as far as your gestures, I really appreciated you had a lot of good gestures. The only thing that I would say that, and I'm not sure how you would do this, you were standing up, but you did have hand gestures. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more movement as far as your body. You were standing pretty much in the same place the whole time. I did like, especially at the end, when you were talking about social distancing and you actually, when you were closing up and you actually walked back. I really like that.
All right, and Rob.
pretty much agree with everything that everybody has said. I would add, keep practicing. I did notice still yet, especially at the beginning portion of the speech, from the introduction, although I thought the introduction was maybe a little bit smoother, as we moved into the first portion of the speech, there were still some pauses in there, as if you were trying to figure out what your next word or phrase was. So keep practicing. Practice will eliminate that, and it'll allow you to move more fluidly throughout your speech. So keep doing that. I think the gestures, like Kim said, was great. So thank you, and keep working on it.
Marcia?
Hey, Karen. So, although I have, been absent and haven't been privy to, see it, but it's great to hear how your speech is evolving. I am in agreement with everything that everyone is saying. I will add, you do have some very funny lines. And so if you practice with sticking them, then they will come across even more humorous than they really are. Okay, a lot of sarcasm in there, but as Rob had stated, if you practice more, it will flow, and then the punchline will come, and the humor will really, stand out more. Okay, but great job, great job.
All right. Let's hear from Dagan.
We already heard it from me. You want to hear from Mark? I can time in.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mark Schroeder.
Okay, I'll go to this color so nobody knows thinks I'm timing. Let's say smoother, definitely a lot smoother than last time, than the previous two times. I noticed you did still say, you may now kiss your wife instead of you may now kiss the bride. You've probably practiced that so many times that now you don't even think about it. I do like the stepping back, especially with the yelling. That just makes a lot more sense and looks a lot better on camera than walking off camera to the side to me. So I thought that was very effective and an improvement. And so overall, definitely better. Keep working on it. Smoother is always better. And unfortunately, now you have to unlearn a couple of lines that you've managed to master perfectly. And I know how that is when you get used to a phrase and trying to change it. It's tough. That's it.
All right, thank you. I believe everyone except for Baloo has gone at this point, and Baloo didn't hear the speech, so she can't really evaluate something that she didn't hear.
Lee, did you give an evaluation on that?
Yeah, did you get a chance to say anything yourself, Lee?
I think everyone really covered everything that I was going to say. I can't really think of anything. Can't really think of anything extra. So good work. Just keep practicing, and I know we'll hear it again next week. A couple of comments for the meeting as a whole before I call for duty holder reports. First of all, we started on time, which I think is the first that we've been virtual. We've started on time. Everybody confirmed their roles early in the week. There were a couple of adjustments, but that was all done before the meeting, so very good. Also, like the fact that Rob gave a role to Kim so that he had something to do during the meeting and made his job obviously easier. The only other thing that couple of things I would suggest. First would just be for table topics, not doing the big three, calling on any of the big three or the evaluator. That would mean that, excuse me, this evening, we would have really only had 3 people that, didn't have a role, but that's okay. We actually would have had 4. Someone could have called on Blue. But sometimes just having shorter table topics is better than having people that have been speak again. The only other thing I would say is just with the meeting themes, just making sure that we're moving through quickly and not being too repetitive, and that way we can make sure that we can make up for lost time. Especially if we're going to do a round robin evaluation, sometimes those. With that, I will now call on our duty holders, starting with our grammarian, John.
Well, thank you. The only thing I've got to say about it tonight was everybody did a good job as far as using grammar. I didn't hear any really egregious uses of the English language. And the only thing that stuck out in my mind as a funny word tonight, or a good word that I liked, was Rob Giles said squiggly. And I just think that's funny. I like the word squiggly. So all in all, everybody did a good job with their grammar tonight. Thank you.
Next, let's hear from our all counter for this evening.
I had noted when evaluating Dakin that there were several you-knows. John Vessels had several so's to start out a sentence when calling on people. So Mr. Schroeder, so Marcia. Mark Schroeder, I think I caught a quick and a quick you-know. Maybe so quick I barely heard it, but did. And Marcia, there were several uhs or ums, so that's an excellent thing to try and work on and weed out. And it would be easier, maybe I should have went through my supply box and found the clicker, although it's a little more difficult in this setting because it really does make an impact on you to try and weed out certain habits. Kim, I believe a quick so and a quick which is uncharacteristic. And then Rob, a couple of limited so's. And that's my report, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, let's hear from Kim on posture monitor.
Mr. General Evaluator, kudos to both of our speakers. You had a lot of great gestures. Everyone else, I pretty much only caught a couple of things, and one was Marcia, during table topics, you scratched your neck. And then Dagan, during the round robin, you scratched the side of your head. Other than that, those are the only couple things that I caught as far as anything negative during posture monitoring. Back to you.
All right, very good. At this time, I will call for a vote at the best of the big three. That would be between Rob Giles as our Toastmaster, John Vessels as our table topics, and myself as General Evaluator. And since this is evaluation contest season, I did see that everybody qualified on their time for their 1 minute evaluation of Karen's speech. So if you participated in that, go ahead and just cast a vote to Mark Schroeder. So we'll go ahead and have our obvious winner for evaluations, Mark Sims, but in addition, we'll go ahead and have one additional best evaluator this evening, the person that could give the best, most round, and thorough evaluation in a minute.
Please make sure that you make it clear which one you're voting, which one of those races you're voting for, so that I don't accumulate them incorrectly.
Oh, yes, 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 do that. And now I'll go ahead and turn the meeting over to our president, Mark Sims.
Thank you. For starters, and this is the business part of the meeting, I would like to get a quick update from Dagan on how many people have renewed on their dues and his thoughts on that subject.
Okay. 1 second. I have two people that have not paid yet from the invoices I sent out.
Okay, that's pretty good progress. Obviously, we want everyone to.
Well, actually 3. One of those including Sean Lane, so that makes, with Sean Lane that makes 3. But you wasn't really counting on him anyway. So that's, but yeah. 2 that we're counting on still not paid yet.
Okay. And definitely would encourage everyone to renew, because we definitely need you in the club, and we all definitely need the quality or the benefits that Toastmasters provides. And Dagan made it very easy to renew because it was just a quick process to click and then enter in a little personal information or credit card information. Also tonight, I'd like to note that Baloo Thomas is joining us, and thank you, Baloo. Is there anything you want to tell us?
Asking her to unmute. There she goes.
Oh, no. I missed the speeches. Unfortunately, so no, nothing new to report.
Well, thank you again for joining us tonight. And you can see Karen's speech when she gives it at the October 3rd contest, which obviously will be online, and definitely we're looking forward to that. So I hope you can attend. I hope you can come back as much as you can, Blue, and
Yep.
obviously attend the contest also, as all of us hopefully can.
And if you want to rejoin, just let me know. Do invoice.
Right. Yes. Okay, Dagan.
Yeah, excellent. Because yes, we definitely want to get as big of a group as we can. And Rob, I think you wanted to be recognized. You're muted.
Thank you, Mark. I would like to go ahead and do a recognition. I'm going to share the screen here, and I want to recognize one of our members who recently completed a while ago, but we've just recently received the request to go ahead and congratulate. That's not it. Sorry, my apologies. So you can see part of it here. It's not full screen at this point, but you can see the screen, right? Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you'll see here, Mark Schroeder is the person that I would like to give accolades to. He is an Advanced Communicator Silver and Advanced Leader Bronze from the Legacy or Traditional program. But with this Pathway certificate that I'm about to show in a second, he was awarded this officially on September 16th, 2019. And recently, this certificate here, which is for completion of the Visionary Communication Level 1. We commend Mark for this, and I know that he's very, very close, just a check away from go ahead and moving on to the next level. But let's go ahead and give him a round of applause for his completion of Level 1. Thank you very much, Mark, and we appreciate your fortitude and your persistence. It's definitely not superfluous. We appreciate it. Back to you, Mr. President, or yeah, Mr. President.
Thank you, Rob. And before we go to the vote results, does anyone else have any business to bring up? I totally understand. So in that case, I'd like to ask our vote counter, please present us the winners for the night.
Certainly, I'd be happy to. All right, so I will do them in chronological order. Our first is, of course, for Best Speaker, and the Best Speaker for the night is Dagan Newland. All right, next is Table Topics. Table Topics, a good round robin on voting. But the winner for Table Topics tonight is Rob Giles. Next, of course, I'm not exactly sure. I want to make sure I got this the way Lee wanted it, but as an evaluator in our normal evaluation contest, of course, it's Mark Sims as our evaluator. And then we had a separate one. I believe he wanted it as a separate vote because it was only 30 seconds to 1 minute. That very quick, fast round of evaluations goes to Marcia. Congratulations, Marcia. And finally, we have best of the big three. Best of the big three tonight goes to our Toastmaster, Rob Giles. Congratulations, Rob.
Okay. All right, congratulations, Rob, and congratulations, everyone. Very good meeting. And if there is no additional business to bring up, Dagan, I'll just let you know either this evening or tomorrow. I'll complete your evaluation and email it to you. Thanks again for your speech. And I hope everyone has a terrific weekend.
Good night.
With that, I will be stopping the recording in 3, 2,